I used to think love meant not having to worry, not about losing someone, not about being left behind, not about waking up one day and realizing everything had changed without warning. For a long time, I believed stability was the same as connection, that if two people lived quietly beside each other without fights or shouting, then they were safe, maybe even happy. Our life looked calm from the outside. We had routines that never broke, grocery trips on Sundays, dinner at the same time every evening, soft goodnights, familiar mornings, the kind of life people say they want once the excitement settles. There were no explosions, no betrayals, no dramatic shifts, just stillness. I told myself that stillness was love, or close enough. I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't present, and the dangerous part was that I couldn't tell the difference. Some nights, lying in bed, I felt like we were two pieces of furniture in the same room, useful, familiar, placed together because it made sense. I would stare at the ceiling and think, this should feel like safety, but it didn't. It felt like waiting for something I couldn't name. One of the strangest things about comfort is how easily it becomes a trap. Not because someone locks you inside it, but because you close the door yourself. I stayed because I knew how to. I knew how to live that life, how to avoid the conversations we didn't want to have, how to smooth over awkward silences with small talk, how to make a house feel full even when I didn't. He never asked me to stay. He never asked me to go. He never noticed the difference. There were times I would think about leaving, not out of anger, but out of a quiet curiosity about who I might be somewhere else. But I always stopped before the thought was finished. Starting over felt like tearing up a map without knowing if I could draw another one. I thought staying meant loyalty. I thought indecision was patience. I thought love was supposed to feel like endurance. And maybe I didn't want to learn a new life from the ground up. It felt simpler to sleep beside someone whose breathing patterns I already knew. It's surprisingly easy to confuse fear with devotion. There's a kind of relationship that doesn't break. It just thins, little by little, quietly, until one day it's like touching fog. We lived like that. We weren't unhappy, we weren't fighting, we weren't hurting each other. We were just unconnected. Sometimes he would talk about his day, and I would nod, realizing minutes later I couldn't repeat a single word he'd said. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't know where to place the information. There was no emotional shelf for it to sit on. We stopped asking questions that mattered, stopped offering pieces of ourselves, stopped reaching, even gently. He would touch my shoulder in passing, familiar, not intimate. I would smile at him across the room, polite, not warm. There is a loneliness that only exists next to another person. I learned that slowly. I think he felt it too, but neither of us had the language to say so. It happened in the smallest moment, like these things always do. A Saturday morning, we were both in the kitchen. He was making coffee, I was buttering toast. He said, casually, "We should get a new set of plates. These look worn." And I heard myself answer, "Okay, you choose." It was automatic, easy, a reflex I had built over years. And then, just as quietly, something in me paused, because I couldn't remember the last time I had chosen anything that mattered. Not plates, not weekends, not dreams, not us. Somewhere along the way, I had given up the part of myself that made decisions, not because he asked, not because he wanted control, but because not choosing felt safer. I looked at him, really looked, and felt neither anger nor blame, just clarity. I hadn't been afraid of losing him. I had been afraid of starting over. And suddenly, neither fear felt bigger than the question forming in my chest. What if beginning again is not the same as leaving? What if it's returning to myself? I didn't leave that morning. I didn't pack bags. I didn't cry. I didn't make a speech. I just made a decision quietly, inside myself. I will not stay out of fear. It didn't feel victorious. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt like taking a breath after years of shallow ones. I stayed for a while longer, but differently. Less like a shadow, more like someone learning how to stand up straight again. And when I finally left, it wasn't a door slamming, it wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. Fear didn't disappear, but it stopped being the thing that made my choices. I used to think losing someone was the worst outcome. Now I understand. Losing myself would have been worse. I didn't leave because I didn't love him. I left because I needed to learn if I could love me. And that beginning was enough.